Hi. So, many people these days talk about animal welfare, but what does that mean? What does a good life look like for an animal? Imagine that this cat is in a research facility. She actually is. She has food, water, temperature and lighting are controlled, regulatory requirements for animal welfare are met. But here's the problem. What does that mean? Rarely is it asked, what is this animal actually experiencing? So how do we know what life is like for the animal? And why does it matter? So during my PhD, I worked a lot with research dogs and cats, and I spent a lot of my free time with them as well. Weekends, holidays, downtime, that was my life. But what I saw was that some of the animals, they didn't have their mental needs met. I saw chronic stress. On paper though, they were healthy, they were doing fine, but were they? So what is this animal's actual experience? Animal welfare is about an individual's mental state, as much as, if not more than, their physical state, what it feels like to be that animal over time. And so to answer that question, what is the animal experiencing? To talk about animal welfare scientifically, we need objective measures of the animal's experience. And what mattered to me was, how can we measure chronic stress in cats in particular? So cortisol is a hormone that's typically measured as a proxy for acute stress, acute short-term stress. It's the biomarker of the HPA axis, the stress axis. And it turns out cortisol accumulates in long-term in the hair and nails of species and cats. So my research initially focused on non-invasive measurement of long-term cortisol and this potentially chronic stress in cats, cat fur and claws. I partnered with a lab and using ELISA quantified cat hair cortisol concentration. And we were also the first to measure the amount of cortisol in cat nails. I also have a strong interest in chickens. We knew the equivalent of cortisol, corticosterone, could be measured in chicken feathers, as it had been done before. But what about chicken nails? No one had quantified corticosterone in chicken nails before. But to my disappointment, it seems that whenever you trim chickens' nails, they bleed a lot. So anyhow, but yes, we can quantify the amount of cortisol or corticosterone in fur, feathers, and some species' nails. But a question still bothered me. What exactly are we measuring? What does cortisol stored in hair or nails actually tell us? Yeah, cortisol elevations can reflect stress, but elevated cortisol also reflects excitement, activity, arousal. It tells us intensity, but it doesn't tell us experience. It doesn't tell us about valence, whether something is positive or negative. And the important part to me was that I wanted to know about some of the most concerning states. Anhedonia, the inability to experience pleasure when an animal is given up, learned helplessness, extreme boredom, apathy, and withdrawal. And long-term cortisol, that doesn't get at that. So some of my work is shifting. In class, I teach students about telos, the pigness of a pig, the catness of a cat, the chickenness of a chicken. And I teach them about Umwelt, life experience from the animal's perspective. And in research, I'm evaluating everyday normal behaviors and effective states in animals, such as chickens, in a sanctuary environment, leading good lives, experiencing joy. So this is research through observation, ethograms, videos, and hopefully we'll eventually incorporate AI. I'm now also collaborating with my colleague, Dr. Kavitha Kongara, on non-invasive EEG work, using brain activity to evaluate multiple types of affective states. Yes, pain and acute stress, but also rest, engagement, maybe joy, maybe boredom. And there are other biomarkers to be explored. But there's another piece to this, because even the best measurement tools won't help if we don't know how to see. So alongside this work, I've studied veterinary education itself. Can we teach animal welfare so that students' concern for and empathy increases and doesn't wane throughout their veterinary education, as we sometimes see in medical school education? And can we to train students to observe more carefully, to slow down, to really see in our fast-paced world where so many are glued to their screens. So one approach we're exploring is visual thinking strategies. It trains the observer to look closely, support ideas with evidence, and build understanding together. And this is done first through observing art. So my work now sits in two places: evaluating animal experience and evaluating whether we can train students to truly see. Because we can't measure what we don't understand, and we can't truly evaluate welfare if we don't see. All animals' experiences matter. We are responsible for them, as veterinarians, as researchers, as fellow animal species. And my job, my research, is about evaluating how to see and to really see.